Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel Indian Life's German Way. The living costs have been rising since last few years, and same has been the case for Germany. And that begs the question, is it still affordable to live in Germany? There have been periods of inflation followed by deflation in last few years, and what stands true is that there has been drastic cost increase to the living costs. In this video, I'm going to try to give you a breakup of what kind of expenses we as a small family are having here in Germany. So guys, before I deep dive into the numbers, I would like to make some clarifications. So the first and foremost, all the costs are monthly costs. Secondly, these costs are what we are bearing as of today as a family, and some of these costs might not apply to you. The third thing is I have put the numbers slightly on a higher side because I know that in the end you end up spending a little bit higher. Some of the costs have not been included, like vacations or some miscellaneous costs like travel to India or sending money to India and all those things. So of course there are a lot of costs that would come as an add-on on top of these costs, so you need to plan accordingly. And the last point is, based on the expenses that I'm showing, there is still some slight saving opportunities when you plan your expenses. So in terms of the percentage breakup, right, for the overall expenses, you can see that the most spent is the housing, around 39%, followed by the automobile around 23%, and then followed by grocery and food bills, and then followed by your kindergarten fees. Of course, if you don't have children, then it's not applicable to you, but in case you have children, then this is something you need to consider. And the other things like insurances and miscellaneous items are then contributing way less to the overall spend. So let's start with the first cost component, which is the housing. To start with, I would make a note that we have an apartment that we own. So it's a owned apartment and it's around 100 square meters. Therefore, the costs would vary according to the size, according to the city, according to if it's rented. Then of course you have a different cost perspective to look at. So for us, it's owned apartment. Therefore, I'm paying an EMI of around 1,000 euros, and then we have monthly maintenance charges, which is also really high, around 570 euros. Then on top I have a monthly electricity bill around 110 euros. It used to be pretty less. In my previous apartment we used to pay around 60 to 70 euros, but now we have a bigger apartment and therefore more consumption and therefore more charges. And I also pay once a year tax for the land that for this apartment, which is around 400 euros. So I split that also into monthly. Apart from that, you might end up having year-end maintenance bills. So every year at the end of the year, you get some year-end bills. It can be an adjustment of the electricity bill. If you pay less than expected, then of course you need to pay for the remaining money. And similarly, you have a year-end bill about the house maintenance. Yeah, so if you look overall, we have around 1770 euros for the housing part. As said, the costs would vary according to your situation. If you are living in an rented apartment, and also depends a lot on your city. For example, cities like Munich or Berlin, they are more expensive. So now let's talk about the second most expensive item, which is the automobile. And to be honest, if you have an automobile, then you have a lot of charges that you can expect. Of course, it's easier and convenient, but also if you don't have an automobile, then I think you have the possibility to save a lot. Yeah. So in terms of automobile, I have shared the breakup. As you can see, the cost actually depends on the car type, on the car model, and how old is your car, if it's electric or petrol or diesel, what's the fuel type, and so on, right? So there are a lot of different factors that that contribute to this, and there are also a lot of costs included. For example, you have the monthly EMI that you might have to pay for the car, followed by the insurance costs. Then you also have on top fuel costs. You have costs like changing tires. So twice a year you need to get your tires changed. You need to store these tires, And there is also you have yearly car maintenance costs, yeah, you have parking costs. So there's a lot to the automobile part, and I have shared the breakup as you can see. So the most biggest factors are the EMI and the petrol costs, at least for me, because I have a petrol car. So I end up paying around 350 euros per month. So I'm using car all around the year, and I drive around 12 to 15,000 kilometers per year, and based on this consumption I end up around having 350 euros per month. That has of course changed due to the war situation. The price of petrol and the fuel have gone up, and therefore earlier it was around 300 euros, but now it increased to around 350. Of course, again, depends on your consumption and the car model and how frequent you need to go to office and so on. So the other factor is the car monthly EMI. Of course, this you can also decide when you are buying the car, and it also depends on the amount of money you are putting in as a bulk payment, as a one-time payment, and the total value of the car, of course. But for me it's around 333 euros, and the petrol, these are the biggest factors. And then followed by I have car insurance, so I pay around 1400 euros per year for the car insurance, and this I've broken into monthly to give you a monthly comparison. On top I have included parking fees monthly around 100 euros, because normally on the weekends you go to bigger cities and then you have to go in like a park plaza in a parking space, and the costs are really expensive. You have around 3.5 to 4 euros per hour, and then you end up, so yeah, I end up at least around 100 euros per month. Apart from that, you also have costs to change tires. It's also like twice a year activity, and there I end up having spending around 240 euros yearly, and that I have split. On top, there is also a car road insurance, or a tax. Sorry, it's not an insurance, it's a tax. And this bill I normally receive towards end of the year. So in November December time frame I get this tax that I need to pay, and it's around 200 euros for my car, and that's also I have added it here. So as said, automobile is the biggest cost factor, and if you don't have an automobile, then you are much better, and then you have much saving potential. So now let's move on to the second cost component, which is the kindergarten or the childcare expenses. So as said previously in my previous videos, if your child is going to kindergarten, then you have to bear the kindergarten costs. The costs of course depends on the kind of contract you have with kindergarten. If you have a 25 hours contract, or if you have a 40 hours contract, and also depends on your income, family income. So depending on all these factors, the state is calculating the costs. For me, there is a breakup, so I pay around 256 euros monthly for a 25 hours contract, followed by 56 euros for food bill, which is for the food in kindergarten. Then my daughter is having 2 additional courses, so she has swimming classes, and also she has like boxing classes. For those I pay around 102 euros each. In addition, I have also calculated around 50 euros for miscellaneous items like toys, or I don't know. So in total I'm spending around 570 euros for the childcare expenses. So guys, now comes the next segment, which is the grocery, and for this I have split it into 3 parts. So Indian grocery shopping, German supermarket shopping, and the last is the restaurant and cafes. So we are a family who like to cook at home. We are not eating that outside, so therefore the restaurant and cafes is limited to around 150 euros, which means we end up having, I don't know, 4 to 6 restaurant visits in a month. And talking about the Indian grocery shopping, we spend around 250 euros per month. It might sound that it's on the higher side, but that's the reality. And I just want to add that the costs of the grocery, yeah, it really depends on your eating habits and on your family size and your consumption. So therefore the costs might depend on that, right? And for the German grocery, we spend around 350 euros, and this also includes the likes of DM, because we also need buying some stuff from DM. So in general, we prefer to go to Lidl or Aldi, but there are also more expensive supermarkets like Rewe or Edeka, and if you go to these supermarkets, then you end up spending more. So now let's move on to the final part, which is the miscellaneous. And to be honest, miscellaneous is something that actually really varies from person to person and from family to family. So here I'm listing what expenses we have in the miscellaneous category. So for example, I have here the phone bills, I have here the internet bills, I have mentioned here some of the insurances that we have on top apart from the car insurance. So we also have like a house alert insurance to cover the costs for house related articles or the things which are inside house. Then we have also some other expenses like there is also legal insurance in place. And we I also budgeted around 100 euros for shopping, and it also depends a lot on your personal shopping, and sometimes it might not be enough, and sometimes it may not, you may not need it. So as said, these are really personal expenses and depend on your personal lifestyle. Some people would like to go to gym, they might have some more other memberships. Yeah, so it really depends on you, right? So as you can see, so I end up having around 258 euros under miscellaneous, and this is the least amount or the least contributor. So guys, now I'm approaching towards the end of my video, and I would like to conclude by saying that on one hand, Germany is offering good salaries, high paying jobs, especially in the fields of IT, and on the other hand, the rising costs have been a pain. Yeah, but I think this video should give you a quite a good indication about the expected costs when you are planning to come to Germany or when you are already here in Germany. And one thing that I want to add here is that there are of course a lot of potential saving possibilities where you can save money. And some of the tricks is like you do not shop at Rewe or Edeka for your groceries. You do shopping at Lidl or Aldi, for example. There can be some cost savings possible if you end up yeah buying, I don't know, low maintenance vehicles like Volkswagen instead of a Mercedes as an example. Yeah, of course depends on your personal lifestyle, but there are some saving possibilities in each and every domain. Yeah, you can also save some money in terms of insurances. You can opt for some insurances and so on. So in the end, it's yeah, the saving potential is there, but you need to figure out which cost parameters you can save upon and where you can reduce costs. Having that said, I hope the video added some value to you. If you found the video useful, please do consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my YouTube channel. In case you have questions about expected costs or some parts which were not clear, please do feel free to write in the comment section, and I will definitely answer you back. Having that said, thanks for watching. Have a nice one. Yeah, take care. Bye.